Hey guys, my name is Heron,
And I'm Gigas.
and today we are going to be talking about the old folktale known as Nintendo Logic. Or more specifically, just Nintendo in general.
Welcome to Campfire, Embers.
Oh yeah, that's that's the name of this podcast. Uh, as tradition, we must screw up at some point in our intro with this
Yep.
series for some reason.
Totally not intentional.
It never is. Okay, let's see here. Um, so, as most of you know, hopefully by now, I'm a very, very big. I'm a very big Nintendo gamer. This is just gonna make me laugh the entire time. This was a horrible idea. Just a little behind the scenes madness we do. For stuff is we have a sticky note page on our monitor at the moment that reminds us of our main topic and a couple of subtopics for what we review. Unfortunately, we decided it would be a great idea to just make these as comedic as physically possible. So we list our subtopics in succession of what we're going to be talking about in the video. So we have a bunch of Nintendo series that we're going to be talking about. We're going to try to touch on Mario, Legend of Zelda,
Pikmin.
Kirby, and Pokemon. But for essentially, we decided to be really stupid with these. So we just started very easy as this. Our first subtopic is Wario for Mario. Gigas put down Lunky as our Legend of Zelda topic. And we have Pycan for Pikmin. I got nothing for this. I decided to have fun with our next one. King did a Derby for Kirby. And
then we just started joking around, and then the monkey.
yeah, our Pokemon topic is literally just Monkeeee. Monkey. Okay, well that's all right. That's forever on the internet, and
Yep.
all right. So I gotta not look at that. So, as most of you know from from most of my commentary, I'm a very big Nintendo guy. I grew up with only Nintendo consoles, unless I was over at friends' houses playing on their PlayStation or on their Xbox, or watching YouTube videos growing up. So my real only interaction with games that I've put hours and hours and hours into, unless it was Minecraft, it was a Nintendo game. Mm-hmm. And obviously that started with my very first Nintendo game, or my very first video game ever, and that was the original Super Mario Bros. So I've been playing Nintendo games for the last almost 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been a very, very big part of my life. So this stream is going, and this podcast episode is going to be very nostalgic for me, just because I love talking about Nintendo things. I'm a nerd. I'm very, very nerdy about Nintendo games specifically, and yeah, this is going to get a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
no, because you played. You said that your first video game ever was most likely the original Super Mario Bros. As well, right?
Yeah.
So, but I never played it on the NES originally. My first interaction with it, I think, was it might have been because my aunt used to have an NES, but I remember it very vividly being the first Mario game that was my first actual video game. So, but fast forward it to I think it was 2007 when Super Mario Galaxy came out. And that was just my first eye-opening experience to how incredible a game could actually be.
Yeah.
Because Super Mario Galaxy it's still to this day one of my favorite games of all time.
Well, I mean, it was game changing in general when it came out, because it really pushed the limits of gaming altogether.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a launch title for the Wii.
Well, Super Mario Galaxy, I actually read about this. Super Mario Galaxy originally was supposed to be a sequel for Mario 64 called Mario 128.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to push the limits of what they could do
on the N64.
On the N64, but then they later came out with a newer console.
Yep, because they figured out that their plans for this could be that much better.
Yeah, so they came out, Mario Galaxy, I believe, came out for the GameCube.
No, Mario Galaxy was a Wii release. What came out for the GameCube was Super Mario Sunshine.
That's what it is.
And I didn't have Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube growing up. I played it at at our family friends. Their oldest, I forget his name, but he had a GameCube set up in his room. So whenever we went over to their place, that's all we played. We played Wind Waker, and we played Mario Sunshine. So that was my experience with those games growing up. Now, because thank you Nintendo for releasing Super Mario Bros. Or Super Mario 3D All Stars, because that was my first actual like full dive into Sunshine.
Yeah.
And I understand everybody's opinions with it. It's a great game from start to finish. It's a fantastic game, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Continuing on, Mario Galaxy is, yeah, it was revolutionary. I mean, it was the first time Nintendo built in like motion controls into a Mario game. And it, because you had the cursor that allowed you to collect star bits, and if you connected a second Wii remote, you could have just a bunch of chaotic fun. And the second player could like hold Mario down, hold down enemies for you, collect star bits as you were playing the game.
Yeah.
So while you couldn't necessarily play the game co-op, it still allowed you to have some fun with your friend that was watching you play.
Yeah.
So and they did the same thing with the Orange Luma in Super Mario Galaxy too. But I loved Super Mario Galaxy because it introduced the concept of Mario spinning, which was always very, very interesting to me, because that later got adopted into New Super Mario Bros. Wii as like with the propeller shroom and everything, and you being able to just jump and spin, and allowed you to like move higher distances. It allowed you to control things. It allowed you to turn into like a drill that turned you in that killed enemies on impact. It was just an interesting concept for the movement of that. And then they brought back the long jump, which they got rid of from Mario 64 in Super Mario Sunshine, because obviously you had FLUDD, so there was really no need for a long jump in that game.
Yeah.
But let's see. Where was I going with this? Mario Galaxy. It also introduced. Let's see. It introduced the segment of not necessarily timed power-ups, but it introduced the Mario's fire form as a timed power-up, which I always thought was really interesting. And also, Super Mario Galaxy was the first game from Nintendo that had a full-scale orchestra for its soundtrack.
Yeah.
So it allowed just that much more memorable songs and soundtrack design. And
well, I mean, even before then, they couldn't hold enough storage space in their games to be able to hold something like that.
Exactly. So the Wii was, I mean, it was revolutionary for a bunch of reasons. It not only for its motion controls, but for just the amount of processing it was, because this was also when they started doing full disc burning for their games. Because for the GameCube, they just had like the mini discs. Mm-hmm. That was also like the same design that the PlayStation Portable had and stuff like that. So it was it was interesting just how much you could confine onto a disc at that point. I also remember having one of the disc cleaners we bought specifically for the Wii.
Oh yeah.
And we also had we had a lot of things, but the Wii also had a bunch of attachments that it came with for the nunchuck as well, like for like a bunch of the Cabela's game, like the big Cabela hunting games. You had like the rifle attachment, you had like the bow attachment for some of the archery games, you had the fishing attachment that you could do for those games. It was if you've ever seen The Big Bang Theory, they have like all of them at some point in the show.
Yeah.
So it's the Wii was revolutionary for a lot of things, and it continued to develop Mario in because I mean, let's face it, Mario's going to be around for forever. They're Nintendo's mascot. As long as Nintendo's a company, Mario will always continue to be a thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I grew up with Mario. For those of you that don't know, Mario 64 is my favorite game of all time, and I am going to be streaming that a little bit later. So tune in for that.
Mm-hmm. I definitely want to say like my favorite Mario game would probably be just because it holds like a special place in my heart, because like it was the first game that I truly really delved into. Mm-hmm. New Super Mario Bros. Wii.
Yeah,
that was like the first ever like true Mario game that I like played all the way through. And
so I have a question for you then. Did you ever play the original New Super Mario Bros. For the DS? because that was the predecessor to New Super Mario Bros. Wii.
Yes, I did.
Nice. I never played that, so
It came as like a built-in thing when I bought my DS. Not the new Super Mario Bros. 2. I played a little bit of it, but I never really like bothered to really buy it.
I just remember like it still doesn't make sense to me to this day. How many coins can you collect? Like that was, I mean, it was an interesting marketing campaign for the game, but it didn't really have that much of an appeal to me, even when I got the game. It was still it was still a fun game.
I think it came out around whenever the 2DS was a thing, which was a weird design in itself because it didn't fold.
Yeah, it didn't fold, and it just removed the concept of the 3DS.
Yeah, it removed 3D as well.
Essentially,
and I'm pretty sure it was more expensive to buy it.
Yeah, it was just this block of hardware that was so dumb. I like
yeah.
Like
and then they later came out with the new 3DS XL,
which I actually preferred. I never had one, and I still want one because I have big hands. So the at least now, but when I was growing up with my 3DS, it was like the perfect size for like a child.
I'm pretty sure you could still find 3DSs out there.
Oh yeah, you definitely can, especially like on Amazon. You can definitely get, and I mean, heck, in some, like, I'm pretty sure on eBay you could get like custom hacked 3DSs that had all of the games built into it. So, because you can do the same thing with the GameCube, but it's the 2DS was dumb, and I don't understand how anyone bought that. Like that was a waste of money, in my opinion. That's why we never got one for me.
Yeah. Going a little bit forward with some newer Mario related stuff. Besides the one that just came out yesterday.
We'll get to that in a second.
Odyssey. That's very much a different take on Mario that
altogether,
I think everyone enjoyed.
Oh yeah, no, it was the first technically open world Mario game in a sense.
And kind of bridged the gap between like, I mean, the first ever open world Nintendo game, besides like maybe even like in Mario 64, like was mainly Zelda stuff.
Yeah, it was the closest thing to open world that that Nintendo ever developed on the Wii was the original Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, that's true as well.
But that's so unfortunate because that game didn't have like any marketing around it at all when the Wii was a thing, which is so unfortunate because Xenoblade is such a fantastic game. And whenever I talk about Xenoblade, I always say the exact same thing. Xenoblade Chronicles is Nintendo's answer to Final Fantasy. The character like pull between is different. The battle system is completely different, but it's under that impression, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like the anime style of it. It's a great game. But going back into Mario, technically speaking, Mario 64 did do what Odyssey had first, because in Mario 64, you can get every star in every level from the get-go. The only thing that might be inhibiting you is power-ups, essentially.
Yeah.
Or like in the case of Whomp's Fortress, which is the second world in that game, you have to beat King Whomp first before you can get the tower to build on top of Whomp's Fortress. So you can't even get that star until you beat the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funky, but I guess in the same case, Mario Odyssey did the same thing in the because you can't. Because in the Desert Kingdom, you can't go down into the you can't go into I guess like the ice guy's tomb or whatever until you do the upside down pyramid.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funky how that all worked, but so Mario has tried to do the open world thing before through Mario 64, and then it developed it majorly in Mario Odyssey. And also Mario Odyssey was interesting because you didn't have power-ups.
Yeah, it was all based off of Cappy.
Exactly, which I thought was really cool. Like, the power-ups that Mario would normally get were built around enemies.
Yeah. Because
Cappy was a ghost, so he would possess enemies to give you their abilities, which I thought was a really cool concept, and I still do to this day.
Yeah.
Plus, Mario Odyssey is just a great game because you wait the entire game to possess Bowser,
Yeah.
and then that final segment, as like the moon is like erupting around you, is still one of my favorite things to do in
Yeah.
a lot of cases.
Moving ahead to the new game that just released, Super Mario Wonder.
Yeah, we just played the first world of it, and that'll be going up tomorrow.
Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, it will be live. So if you're watching this, go ahead and check it out. It was a lot of fun, very different from normal 2D Mario games.
It's the whole Wonder Flower concept is really interesting to me because you still technically have star coins as collectibles in the game through the 10 flower coins that you get, or the 10x flower coins, because each one you get is still 10 coins.
Yeah.
But they also bring back the golden flag concept from like Super Mario 3D Land, Super Mario 3D World, and those games. So you have to get that as well to 100% it. And the new power up is interesting.
Well, we only know one. There's supposed to be many more later on.
Exactly. And I was going into this initially thinking that using your cap as a parachute was just a move you could do. But apparently, this game has a badge mechanic to where you can only do certain moves when you have that badge equipped.
Yeah, it's almost like Hollow Knight's charms.
Kind of,
sense. Except there's no charm notches. There's only like one badge that you can use.
At least for the time being. We don't know if we're going to get characters later that allow us to have multiple badges or whatever. But it's interesting because it forces you to mess around with your equipment every level, essentially. Because there's certain levels that you can't progress through unless you have your wall kicking ability. There are certain levels you can't progress through without the parachute cap and stuff like that. So if you can't do a level, you physically have to think on your feet of how can I traverse this.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and it also has so many playable characters from the get go.
Yeah, that's.
So you
like
have
at least eight.
Yeah, you have Mario, Luigi, Blue Toad, Yellow Toad from the from New Super Mario Bros. Wii. So you have all those characters together. Nabbit makes a return from New Super Mario Bros. New Super Luigi Bros. U, and you can also play as four
Yoshis.
Four Yoshis. You got red, blue, yellow, light blue, and obviously green. And then you can play as the princesses as well. You can play as Daisy and Peach.
Yeah, so that's 10?
Yeah, either way, it's a lot of characters, and you can switch between them at any point as long as it's not in a level.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I love that because it allows anybody to play as Luigi or things like that, which I always loved. That's such a cool concept. But yeah, no, it's fun. It's the Wonder Flower concept is interesting because it forces you to effectively find a power up that doesn't affect you, it affects the environment.
Yeah.
Which is a very different way of looking at a Mario power-up.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's different every time you do it. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, because it's unique to the world itself.
It's unique to the terrain of the level. So whatever, because there's a bull rushing level where when you activate the Wonder Flower, you literally start running with the bulls, and by the end of it, it's like you're riding one of the bone coasters from the Fire Worlds from the previous New Super Mario Bros. Games.
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting, and I love it. It's a very different take on the 2D Mario concept. So definitely check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah. I guess.
I guess I should ask this question because everybody asks this question when you're talking about Mario. Out of every game that's come out under the Mario name, what is your favorite power-up?
My favorite power-up? Ooh. That's an interesting one because there's so many unique power-ups.
Exactly. What did you ever have the most fun playing with when you had equipped?
I would say the penguin power-up, the penguin suit power-up.
From New Super Mario Bros. Wii?
Yeah.
Nice.
Just being able to slide around and like just annihilate everything in your path.
Mm-hmm. I've always been so as far as like actual core power-ups go, you can never go wrong with it. Where I was going to say another power-up, but I actually think I have to say my favorite power up has to be the tiny mushroom.
Oh yeah.
Because you run so fast with it in whatever game you're playing with, and you have you have a slower descent when you fall, so you just go flying around the screen when you have it
Yeah,
equipped.
you can. I remember being able to skip entire levels using the tiny mushroom.
Exactly, because you have a longer arc in your jumps whenever you do it as well. So it feels like you're playing Mario 64, because in that game you can chain together jumps to just go launching yourself across the map.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of fun. But if I can't choose the tiny mushroom, my favorite in any game that's Mario based is the Mega Mushroom.
Yes.
Because you just turn into Godzilla Mario and wreak havoc on the level.
Yeah, that would be my second favorite as well.
All right. I guess we'll move on to my. Well, this series from Nintendo houses my second favorite game of all time, and it's. I know it's one of your favorite games as well, even though you've never fully played it all the way through.
Yeah, I never finished it, unfortunately, because I never really
You never really owned it, yeah. And I didn't really own it until I was really like 12 or 13. Anyway, so we are talking about The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
Yeah. Which, still waiting for a remake for the Switch.
Yep, it's one of the besides the Four Swords games, it's one of two very, very sought after games that people really want to play on the Switch.
Well, that and Wind Waker, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said one of two.
Well, you said Four Swords, so that's
why I said besides Four Swords.
Okay.
I covered myself, I promise you. But yeah, no, why do I love that game so much? The first reason is just from the get-go, the art style is so beautiful. Mm-hmm. It uses monotone colors in a way that just makes everything have it looks like a sunset all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just gorgeous. The text is so methodically written that it makes you feel like you're part of a legend.
It's interesting because now that I think about it, some of the most popular Zelda games are based in the depressing era, like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess.
Majora's Mask is a different breed of Zelda, because you've barely scratched the surface of that game, have you?
Yeah, I'm working my way through Ocarina of Time, then moving into
which is good because Majora's Mask is the sequel to Ocarina of Time, so that makes sense. I also love the combat in Twilight Princess is so good as well, because as you progress through the game, you meet the fall. I forget his actual name, but or at least the item name that that the actual game code is written around. I always call him the Fallen Hero, because he's supposed to be Ocarina of Time Link after saving Termina in Majora's Mask, because the whole plot for Majora's Mask, this isn't really a spoiler. The beginning of Majora's Mask, the whole reason why Link goes into the Lost Woods is because Navi leaves at the end of Ocarina of Time, and he goes searching for his friend. And then as soon as he saves Termina, he goes back to the Lost Woods to continue looking. And because when children or when people get lost in the Lost Woods for an extended amount of time, they turn into Stalfos. Mm-hmm. That's the legend that's associated with it. So, but so you get transported into this alternate dimension every time you find the Golden Wolf or a Howling Stone, which activates the Golden Wolf somewhere around the map. And then as soon as you find the Golden Wolf, you get another way to attack your enemies. So it's cool because that's how you do it's how you do the Fatal Blow in that game. It's how you do the Shield Bash. It's how you get the Great Spin. It's how you get I forget what it's called, but you can roll around to the side of your enemy and then essentially uppercut them with your sword. The combat is really intuitive for a Zelda game in that, so that's fun as well. The dungeons are some of my favorite in the entire series. The Arbiter's Grounds is interesting because it takes place essentially in a desert temple, and the item you get from that is it's the spinner. If you've ever seen that as a weapon in Hyrule Warriors or anything like that, it's such a unique item that allows Link to traverse the terrain on these on these cable lines that you find scattered throughout. So Link just goes flying, and you're essentially on like a Beyblade flying through the temple
Yeah.
on these. And the boss for that, the great, I think it's called the Great Stalfos, or something like that. The boss, the second half of that boss, you literally are scaling up the wall and fighting a giant, like, possessed demon head, like demon skull. It's such a great boss battle. But my favorite temple in Twilight Princess is the Snow Peak Ruins. It's literally a giant mansion that a Yeti and his wife have moved into, and the entire temple is built around you trying to get to the bedroom to get that shard of the Mirror of Twilight. And it's so interesting because a lot of people despise ice physics in games because they hate slipping around. They hate not knowing how how the slipperiness affects your movement. So you'll just start randomly being slingshotted in one random direction and you can't stop, so you run into the wall or you fall off the edge multiple times. I love ice physics because they allow for some of the most interesting puzzles. And even block puzzles are thrown into complete chaos with ice physics as well, because they become push puzzles at that point.
Yeah.
So it's plus the boss fight is just really, really good. I'm a huge fan of winter and like ice themed areas, not only in games but in real life as well. I always joke that I am a human furnace IRL, because it doesn't take much for me to start sweating with whatever season it is or whatever I'm doing. So winter is like the time when I can just be a human. So there's that. It's also just beautiful. People are, for some reason, a lot nicer around the holidays and stuff like that. It's a much more cozy time to be with your family. It's and obviously there's Christmas or Hanukkah. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot to look forward to in the winter. And even you can always just play around in the snow. Obviously there's things that come with that, like shoveling your driveway or like putting up your frost shield and forgetting your frost shield, so you have to wait for like 15 minutes for your car to warm up so you can see outside of your windshield. You have ice scraper. So I mean, it doesn't come without its repercussions, but those are minuscule to me in the grand scheme of things, because if you think on like a global perspective, you also have the Northern Lights in around like the North and South Pole that you can see, which is just a beautiful like phenomenon that occurs because it's so cold, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just and obviously there's recreation as well, snowboarding and skiing, and I'm a huge snowboarder. I love snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I love coffee, and that always just hits different in winter. So it's
We talking about winter, or we talking about Zelda here?
I'm just I love winter, and that's why ice themed areas or snow themed areas have always been my favorite in games. And I have this in common with Jacksepticeye as well. And whenever I'm playing a big mainstream game like the new God of War games, or like Shadow of the Colossus or anything like that, I always look back to see if I have footprints in the snow. Because that's just an attunement to detail that a lot of developers can miss, that just makes the game so much more immersive, you know? Mm-hmm. And I just love the effect of it. Also, snowy forests are gorgeous as well.
Yeah.
So moving on to the Zelda topic as well. Swords are cool.
Yeah. I can agree to that. I have 3 of them.
I have a couple as well. So it's interesting because it forces you to play. If you've never played a Zelda game before, essentially Link is the protagonist throughout most of the Legend of Zelda series, I think, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. And normally they're just spin-off games anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, his iconic blade, the Master Sword, is a very interesting concept, because if you've ever played Skyward Sword, that game goes into how it was developed. Because you get the Goddess Blade initially from Fi, and I recently discovered this because I've been recently replaying Skyward Sword HD for the Switch. As you go throughout the game, you upgrade your sword through the Goddess Flames that are in the other half of the game. And every time you upgrade your blade, Probably not. Sorry. Every time you upgrade your blade, you get a different name. So it's first off, you have the goddess you have the goddess blade, then you get the goddess long sword, then you get the goddess white sword, and then finally you get the master sword. So it's just cool with that. And then obviously you have the Hylian shield in those games as well, which is just a cool concept. I also love the Hylian crest just as a piece of art because it's cool looking.
Yeah. I apologize for not speaking very much. This is very much a Heron thing. Like,
you grew up with. You dabbled in a couple of Nintendo games growing up, but you were more of an Xbox PlayStation kid.
yeah.
So, like, this is my time to shine with my nerdy Nintendo knowledge. Because I got Gigas into most of the Nintendo games he loves to play nowadays. I got him into. Was it me or was it Zay that got you into Splatoon?
Zay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I got you because you always knew about Zelda, but I was the one that kind of like reignited that flame through letting you play my copy of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And let's see, we also had I got you into Pokemon. I definitely got you into Pokemon.
Yes.
I got you into Pikmin. I got you into Kirby. I got you into Xenoblade.
Well, I mean, I played Kirby's Adventure and stuff like that, but like none of the newer Kirby games.
Yeah, because my first Kirby game was Return to Dreamland on the Wii, so that's when Kirby started getting different. Essentially, different in a good way.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Legend of Zelda, my second favorite game in that series would have to be Majora's Mask, and I've got to keep my lid shut a little bit here because Gigas has barely played that game. Everybody who's never played Majora's Mask, I refer to it as the black sheep of the series because the game is very, very side quest heavy. Because the main game, all you really do is you have to find at the end of you have to find each temple, which is sealed by a song that you usually get an inhabitant upgrade because the game is based around you turning into different creatures that are scattered throughout the Zelda series, like the Dekus, the Gorons, and the Zoras as well. And then eventually in the final boss, if you collect all the masks at the end of the game, before the final boss with Majora's Mask, you get the Fierce Deity's mask, which is a very, very interesting concept. And if you've ever seen Fierce Deity Link, he doesn't have pupils in his eyes. He has like war paint, and he has a double helix blade, which is arguably more powerful than the Master Sword. So it's Majora's Mask is a different thing because there's only 4 temples in the game. So if you want to increase your health, you have to do side quests. Because that's how you get the heart pieces and stuff like that. So if you want to max out your health to get your 20 hearts in most Zelda games that you have, unless you're playing Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, then you have to play. You have to do all those side quests. And the cool thing is that game actually has like a notebook that you get at the beginning of the game that helps you keep track of every individual detail because you play through all of the residents. You essentially help all the residents throughout the land of Termina. So it's a very interesting game since it only has 4 temples. But it's still a lot of fun because each of those temples are drastically different than each other and there's no like commonality between them at all. Mm-hmm. And they're more so structured not only around the items that you get, because the items you usually get in the overworld in that game, or their mask abilities that you get along there as well, because initially in the first temple you get your hero's bow, and then as for each of the other temples you get some kind of arrow. I think the first one you get is the fire arrows, then you get the ice arrows, and then finally you get the light arrows in the last one. So it forces you to think about those things, and each of the boss fights in that game are fantastic in their own right as well. So that's all I'll say about Majora's Mask, because even with all that information, I'm barely scratching the surface of that game.
Yeah.
And that's all common lore that if you've seen any Zelda lore video, you already know. Mm-hmm. So, but I think, I don't know, what are your opinions on Zelda?
Well, I mean, I definitely don't know as much as you do. My knowledge of
the lore.
Zelda is very limited to like the 2 newest games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Almost 100%ed Breath of the Wild on Master Mode, so there's a lot I could say about that.
The interesting thing too is you're not used to common like Zelda mechanics and things like that, because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are very different games from the other Zelda games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's interesting because not only there aren't really, I mean, there are temples in Tears of the Kingdom, but Breath of the Wild doesn't have any temples unless you want to count the Divine Beasts.
Well, I mean, I played most of the way through Minish Cap.
Yeah. So you've seen some core elements that Zelda has.
Yeah.
But you I guess I should say you're not used to some of the basic concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, I mean, Zelda's a fantastic series, and every game is great in its own right. Although a lot of people haven't experienced Skyward Sword because they hate the motion controls. And honestly, that was my biggest not necessarily the motion controls by themselves in the HD remake for Skyward Sword, but the thing that annoyed me the most for that was how often I had to recenter the tip of your blade, because the whole point about that game is being able to slice at an angle, and a lot of boss fights and puzzles take advantage of that. So it's annoying that they didn't spend as much time developing that piece of motion control technology for the Switch if they were planning on remaking games like Super Mario Galaxy and Skyward Sword that use them so heavily.
Yeah.
So that annoys me a little bit, because the game is still playable. It's just a little annoying when you're fighting like Demise at the end of the game and your blade, instead of being ready as it normally would be, is suddenly at an angle, and then he kills you like 15 times due to your sword being not at the right place when you've calibrated it like 15 times.
You speak from experience, I see.
Demise was a chore, and not in a good way. Because that in order to get through that boss fight, you have to shield bash whenever he attacks you in a lot of in most of his phases. So unfortunately, when your sword is over here in like the complete opposite direction, it doesn't allow you to recenter it fast enough so you can shield bash and then hit him a bunch of times. It's just annoying. There's no other way to describe it. But that's nor here nor there. Zelda's a fantastic series, and I could go on and on and on about the lore of that game and how it connects with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I still barely played any of Tears of the Kingdom, which I hate myself for doing.
I played quite a bit of Tears of the Kingdom. I am yet to beat it because I've just kind of been doing most of the side quests and stuff beforehand. Mm-hmm. But it's an amazing game.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt it. And I mean, I was having fun with it. The whole reason why I had a hard time playing it when it was coming out is I love that people were getting excited about Zelda, but when it's everything you see when you're scrolling through social media, or it's anything that anybody who likes Zelda is talking to you about, that's the only thing that's on your mind. I get it. People are going to be excited about a new game and stuff that's been developed over time, like extremely, because we didn't know what it was going to be like if the map was already a thing in Breath of the Wild. We didn't know how that was going to play into it, so we were all very, very curious. And when the game released, it was fun to play. But I had a lot of fun actually playing it when I did, but it burns you out if it's all anybody is talking about. Mm-hmm. It's the same reason why, unless you go see a popular movie that's out at that moment, you can't connect to people through that. You know what I mean? So it just becomes annoying, and then you have to do this thing, and then it doesn't become about having fun anymore. It becomes a chore.
Yeah.
At that point. So that's the reason why I couldn't bring myself mentally to play Tears of the Kingdom when it was fresh, because I got bored, because all I could think about was, oh, if I don't like this section, how am I going to talk to people about it? And like, if I don't focus so hard on this, how am I going to be able to talk and have a conversation about this game with somebody? It's like, I play video games for myself, yes, but I also enjoy having conversations with people about them. And if I don't understand it well enough to have a conversation about it, then either I become ignorant in that conversation, or at face value, the game just isn't fun at that point, So I will play it eventually. I plan on playing it, hopefully by the end of this year, and just diving in until I beat the game. But that's kind of my 2 cents on why I don't have the knowledge on it like most of the Zelda culture has at the moment. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not saying it's a bad game. I just got media burnout from it. So yeah, what I guess finish your opinions on Zelda.
I mean, you like me and you have very different like thoughts. Like, even though like I'm not the greatest, I don't have the greatest history of finishing games. I do just like to just chill and just play a game. I don't really care much about the whole social media and like people like get hyped about a game. I it really doesn't like bother me as much as like what you say it does.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to play the games.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, I'm not saying I don't like. I still play the games for me, but there's another element to it, if that makes sense, because I am an extrovert and I like having conversations with people. So it's
yeah, that's different for me. I'm an introvert, so
so it's that's kind of how I view those games. I want to play them for myself, and I do, but it's also a good thing for me if I understand it at a heavy if I understand it on a level that allows me to have a conversation with it about somebody. Because you and me, we've talked hours and hours and hours about Zelda in the past.
yeah.
So it's definitely something I can get on topic for. Honestly, if I really wanted to, I could do a whole probably podcast episode related to just the lore dump of Legend of Zelda and its series entirely, and I can go into my speculations about how everything is related to Breath of the Wild, or if it's not, or like and stuff like that.
I think people's already done that for you.
Exactly, they have. Go check out the leaderboard. They do a really, really good recap on the timeline and stuff like that. And MatPat does a great job in his timeline explanation of everything. So if you don't know who MatPat is, I don't understand you as a person. But needless to say, we're both pretty big Zelda fans, and Gigas has barely scratched the surface of the series in its entirety. So
yeah, I need to finish Tears of the Kingdom.
But I guess we can go into a game, into a series that got a sequel to a game in this past year that a lot of people kind of forgot about. And it's a character that showed up on Super Smash Bros. And was just like, who is this little astronaut guy? And what are these things that are following him? We're talking about Pikmin. Pikmin is a real-time strategy game that focuses on, in the first game, it focuses on Olimar crash landing on PNF 404, which is essentially a very aged Earth, to the point where humans have gone extinct, but a lot of their things like aluminum cans are like scattered throughout the world. Bridges exist, houses still exist, and apparently in Pikmin 4, dogs have like devolved into into like very minuscule beings.
Well, they've been confirmed they're from a different planet.
Yeah, so but I mean, take a look at Moss. He was there. So but then you have the Ancient Sire Hound, which is just that's such a good boss fight. But it focuses on the first game focuses on you retrieving Olimar's ship parts to rebuild his ship, the SS Dolphin, so he can take off before your 30-day time limit, where each day is 13 minutes, and it focuses you. It makes you focus on a different degree that a lot of other Nintendo games don't do. So it's a very, very different game, but I still love it because it's a different kind of puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, what was your experience playing the first Pikmin game?
So, I mean, I didn't really have a chance to finish it because I was in the middle of playing it, and then Pikmin 4 came out.
Which, that...
But, yeah, so, Pikmin 1 is definitely very different from the newer games. Especially since you have that 30-day limit. Like, there's no increasing it. There's no getting around it. It's a flat 30 days that you have to ensure that you get everything done by.
Yeah, it's interesting because Pikmin 2 and Pikmin 4 have no time limit whatsoever. You can take as long as you want. Pikmin 3, you kind of have a time limit because you have to get juice in that game in order to stay alive. So if you run out of juice, you can't continue.
Yeah, but even then, it's like super lenient. I think because we 100%ed that game.
Yeah, and by the time we finished it by like day 19, I think.
Yeah, and we had
a surplus of like 80 I think 86 juice cartons, which downgrade after every day you do. So it's Pikmin 3 and Pikmin 1 aren't necessarily hard games, but they're different from the other ones.
Yeah.
Pikmin 2 it's interesting because at the end of Pikmin 1 you no shocker, you get off of PNF 404 and you go back to Olimar goes back to Planet Hakotate to essentially be like, hey, I'm alive, by the way. And then his company ends up being in debt because they just hired a new employee, Louis, who on his first expedition ended up losing his entire load of Golden Brand Pikmin carrots, and then the company was in debt 10,100 Pokos. So after Olimar brings back a souvenir from PNF 404 that they find is worth 100 Pokos, and that his president forces him and Louis to go back to PNF 404 to collect treasure to pay off the company's debt. So after Olimar barely survives his ship crash landing, rebuilding it, and then going back home, not even getting to see his wife or kids at all from literally just about dying, his boss is just like, oh, by the way, you're going back to work immediately. And then they set off back to PNF 404, find the Pikmin again, and just go into... they go on a treasure hunt. Mm-hmm. Which that game is interesting because it introduces I can speak. It introduces the concept of dungeons, where you go in after every floor. Every floor either has certain enemies that you have to defeat in order to get to the next hole, which leads you to the next level. You have a certain amount of a treasure that's associated with each floor, and then you also have the introduction of ivory and violet Pikmin, or whites and purples, as a lot of people call them. It also introduces the element of poison as an element in the game. Well, technically, there was poison in Pikmin 1 if you face the Smoky Prog out in the distant spring, but a lot of people ignored that in its entirety.
Yeah.
So, and there is a way to just ignore that boss in its entirety if you stay on the other end of the map. So it's... or if you get through those treasures fast enough to allow you to go to the other end of the map, and then... Because apparently you had some trouble with the distant spring, and you kept accidentally activating the Smoky Prog.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, because like the first time I was even in there, I didn't even touch the thing, and all of a sudden it was eating all my Pikmin. I was like, what the heck is this thing?
Yeah, on the bright side though, if you manage to defeat the Smoky Prog, you get a golden seed that gives you 100 Pikmin. So, I mean, yay? Question mark. It's an optional boss, but it's definitely the hardest boss in the game.
Yeah.
And even, but yeah, so going back to Pikmin 2, it introduces, purple Pikmin, which, are slower than the rest of your Pikmin, even when they're fully flowered up, but they have the strength of 10 Pikmin. So it allows you to traverse, the terrain that much easier and, essentially have one purple bring back an item to your ship that would otherwise take, a majority of your Pikmin. So it's interesting in that regard. Obviously, they're slower transporting it back, but you use less Pikmin on those items when you're bringing it back, so you can do more stuff in a day.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way, and it brings new challenges to Pikmin that's just interesting overall. And then Pikmin 3 was a pretty big different game in regards to the first two, because you... At the start of the game in Pikmin 2, you got both of your captains, and Pikmin 1 obviously only had one. You only had one captain, but in Pikmin 3, if you traverse close enough towards the beginning of the game, you get 3 captains right off the get-go. So it allows you to do so much more because you can program those captains to do certain things, and then throughout each day, even though you're limited to 13 or 15 minutes, it allows you to get so much more done because you have effectively 3 different players all controlled by the same person on different ends of the map.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we played Pikmin 3 together though.
Well, I played it initially by myself, but then I played through it with you
on
co-op.
When you got Deluxe.
Yeah. Which Deluxe is great because it allowed you it had all the DLC from its initial Wii U release that was built around mission mode and the DLC with why Olimar was there in the first place, slash why he returned at the end of Pikmin 3, because you see a ship crash land after the credits have subsided, and stuff like that. So it's Pikmin 3 is different from that. It also introduces rock Pikmin, so it introduces glass and crystal into the terrain, and it also introduces the concept of initially throwing Pikmin at bosses and enemies, because that's kind of the hidden skill of the rock Pikmin. If you throw them initially, they do more damage than if you just let them swarm it, like you would do in the other Pikmin games.
Yeah.
And then obviously Purple Pikmin back then had the Daze ability, to where if you threw them on the ground near enemies, it would stun them for a couple of seconds. So it made bosses different in that regard. And then obviously in Pikmin 2, when you sacrificed a white Pikmin, it poisoned the boss. So it caused health damage, even though you lost. So you lost a Pikmin, but you did more damage to the boss overall. But Pikmin 3 didn't have whites or purples in the main story. You could still play them in like Bingo Battle or the mission mode, but you didn't have those in the game. But you did have rocks, and you did have flying Pikmin. Flying Pikmin are interesting because they would take different paths than your normal Pikmin would on getting stuff back to your base. So you were able to get all that stuff back to your base so much faster in certain areas, and they could traverse over water because they could just fly over it.
Yeah.
So it allowed you to, but the thing is, if you swarmed an item that was underwater and you didn't have any blues, they started drowning. So it allowed for some interesting puzzles, and also the Quagga Myroclops in Pikmin 3 is still one of my favorite bosses, because it's the hardest boss in my opinion, besides the Plasm Wraith, because that's just a dope final boss. But yeah, Pikmin 4 is obviously the one you have the most knowledge of.
Yeah.
In the Pikmin series. What did you think about it as you were playing it?
So I didn't defeat the final boss because I was still stuck. I'm still stuck on that whole like sensei like
the Sage Dandori.
Yeah, the
stuff.
Sage. That stuff is so difficult.
Dude, I remember.
I don't even know how people can like platinum rank that stuff.
I find it hilarious because I'm sitting there, I'm sitting staring at you having platinum ranked all
I know,
of those.
and it took you an entire week.
It took me, each individual challenge, besides like maybe one or two of them, took me an entire day of dedicated focus to that Dandori challenge. And it like destroyed my brain. But the serotonin relief I had after platinum ranking all of those was well worth it. It was like I was playing a FromSoft game.
Yeah, I think I got through like half of them platinum ranked, and then I just could not, for the life of me, get the next one.
Yeah, it's difficult, and it's definitely something, if I replay Pikmin 4, I'm gonna skip, because I don't ever want to go through that again.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because Pikmin 4 introduced the concept of Ochi, or the mechanic of Ochi, which was this dog that Pikmin could ride on, that allow you to traverse the level that much faster. It was this walking cannon that you could rush into enemies and stun them for a second, and then your Pikmin would explode off of you and then swarm him. So yeah, that battle mechanic you had, the fact that he could be upgraded to have eventually the strength of 100 Pikmin when he was getting something back to his base. He could swallow items that would allow him to go much further as well in those. So Ochi as a concept was interesting because he was a system that you leveled up as you played through the game, and through it he just got stronger and stronger and stronger, and it was necessary. He needed to be maxed out for some of those Sage Dandori levels.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I thought it was a really, really cool idea, and I really loved the concept of Ice Pikmin. As you know, I love my winter. So anything that having to do with ice or water or snow or anything like that, I really love. And I also like the concept that you threw them into ponds or bodies of water to freeze it, so that way you and your other Pikmin and Ochi could traverse it in different areas. Because sometimes you had to freeze the body of water so that Ochi could jump onto a higher platform, which I really liked. So I thought it was really cool, at least.
Yeah.
And then they also had, what was the other one that came out? They had Glow Pikmin and the Night Mechanics, which it was more like a tower defense game rather than a Pikmin game, but it was still kind of fun.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I thought the mechanics were really cool.
So yeah, that's our those are some of our opinions about Mario, Legend of Zelda, and Pikmin. But the next topic we have to talk about is the Kirby games. Kirby's a very interesting character. He's a black hole that has the ability to copy anything he eats. If you pitched this to somebody, they would think you were on acid. But I mean, hey, that's probably how 90% of concepts in video games were created. So, But yeah, what did you? Because your first Kirby game was some of the originals.
Yeah. It was Kirby's Adventure, and then I forget the one that's for the 64.
Crystal Shards.
Yes, the Crystal Shards. That was up until Forgotten Land, like my favorite Kirby game.
Yeah, because that introduced combining copy abilities.
Yeah.
So you had like the giant flame blade, you had like Cutter Bomb, and you had like Flaming Cutter and stuff like that. So I never completed that game, but I did enjoy it, and I will play it eventually because it's on the N64 Virtual Console that the Switch has.
Good luck with the final boss, because I was not able to beat that final boss.
Well, I mean, how old were you when you last played the final boss?
Fair. I was like 10.
I mean, dude, I could barely play Mario 64 when I was like 5. So I could still play it, but I had trouble with it. I guarantee I had a lot of trouble with Zelda games when I was like 10 or so as well. So
Yeah.
it was
I just remember it being a very difficult boss to fight.
Well, I'm excited because I love difficult bosses. They're kind of what make the game fun in a way.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about difficult final bosses, though, let's talk about the end of Kirby in the Forgotten Land.
It wasn't too bad.
No, but like, I guess the shadow version of it that we had to face in the Colosseum was horrible. I think what did that take you and me? Like a solid 10 attempts to do consecutively?
Yeah.
It took us a little while. But Kirby in the Forgotten Land was fantastic in a lot of different ways. Not only was it semi-open world, because the environments were just that much bigger, and it was the first like fully 3D Kirby game. So it allowed it was instead of being from the normal 2D side-scrolling view that most Kirby games are, it was a top-down view, and you had kind of like a Bomberman style or like Legend of Zelda style view from Kirby and stuff like that. So, and the power-ups were upgradable, which I thought was really, really cool, because by the end of the game, your fire ability, instead of just being normal fire Kirby, you were a dragon.
Yeah, which was awesome.
And you had like the gunner ability that turned into like an astronaut with a laser. You had a bunch of different stuff.
I mean, you had fun. I was just the spear waddly.
Hey, you still had fun too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, because that game is interesting, because instead of energy spheres or like sun flowers or whatever you have in that game, your collectibles are Waddle Dees. So each level has hidden challenges that you have to do, and they're only revealed one at a time after you complete the level.
Yeah.
So your goal is you try to do everything in succession, so you only have to do one run of the level.
Well, it was also kind of cool because I could just be I'm not gonna say that word, but like I could just go in and just do massive damage to the boss and not have to worry about myself in times where we had to like do hitless.
Yeah, because
it didn't count for me.
Yeah, all of we found a little. I don't know if it was built into the game or it was just something the developers overlooked. But if you play the game co-op, because every boss in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, you can beat hitless by just having Kirby dodge attacks while Waddle Dee does all of the damage.
Yeah.
So it's a very easy way, and we only used it as a last resort whenever we were facing bosses, but it was interesting that was a thing that was built into the game.
Well, and another thing is, like, if I died, like, I would just have to wait a little bit and I'd be revived, so...
Exactly, so it cheesed bosses so much. But all those boss fights were really fun. Like, the Armadillo was one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was a fun boss.
And then King Dedede got possessed by whoever... what was his name? I want to say Lion-O, but that's Thundercats. He was possessed, and for a large majority of the game, he was the enemy until it was revealed at the end that there was a higher power controlling him. So, it's a very fantastic game. It's a very different styled Kirby game that if you're hesitant about picking up, give it a shot. It was really fun, and also the what did they call it? The full mouth, or what did they call that?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, it's like the big mouth or whatever ability.
Yeah, because it allowed Kirby to become a car. He turned into a fan. He what else? He turned into a staircase, which was random, and stuff like that. Which a mouthful. They were called mouthfuls. And each of those had and throughout the game as well, there was like these different like shadow spaces that you went into. I forget what they were actually called. That were focused around different power-ups and different mouthfuls and stuff like that, which were so difficult to beat.
Yeah.
Because I was when I was playing the game with Gigas, my whole goal for those was to not only beat them, but to beat them and check off the time limit that came with that. It doesn't really add anything to your 100% score, but it just felt wrong to leave that unchecked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we spent way too much time with the fishing.
It was okay. So in that game, in the I guess the base area, the Waddle Dee town, you can fish to get boosted to boost your star coins, so that way you don't really have to worry about money at all in the game. Yeah. And you can focus on the other collectibles, which came throughout the levels and stuff like that, which I think were just the rainbow stars or whatever they were, or sacred stars. I forget what they were exactly called, but it was funny because it was a what do you call those, like quick
time events.
Yeah, quick time events. It was quick time events, the game, essentially, because that's how fishing worked. You had to get so many in a row before you caught a fish, and then that would give you a certain amount of coins, and then you could go just directly back into it, and you keep going until you got, like, I think it was 11 or 12 was the cap you could get in succession with each other, and then you got, I think it was worth like 1,000 or 2,000 coins for each of those.
Yeah.
And
we were constantly just trying to like outsize each other.
Exactly. It was hilarious because every time you broke your record on the weight scale of it, whoever caught that fish got a photo next to the fishing pond. And it was hilarious because we made it a rule after every world we did, we'd sit down and just grind it out for like a half hour.
Yeah. And then I remember being super upset because you got it like 3 times in a row, and then I finally got one heavier than you, and then immediately
I got it covered again. Needless to say, Kirby and 2D Mario games have this weird tendency to like treat the to treat the first player as as kind of just a superior being.
Yeah.
Because even in Mario Kart as well, which we found out, if you play multiplayer, the game is like it's like nerfed for the multiplayers, for like player 2, 3, or 4 or whatever, and it doesn't allow you to go nearly as fast. You get crappier items. It's just
Yeah.
it's hard. So now whenever we play Mario Kart, we have to do it online because otherwise it's not fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, in old Kirby games, if Kirby died, it just ended the level, as if everyone died, which Mario fixed with like the bubble mechanic and stuff like that as well, and it did fix in Kirby and the Forgotten Land as well, but that was stupid.
Well, it was more so like if Kirby died, then the level was over. But if the second player died, then it was fine.
They just came back.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of dumb, and I still don't like that's a thing. But Mario Wonder figured out a way to work around that with its competition mechanic between your multiplayers. Whereas if you do better point scaling wise than the opposing player, you got the responsibility of being first player. Essentially, you control
side scrollers.
Yeah, you control the camera focused on you. At that point, you got control over the text of the story. You got control over everything. So it adds that competition element where you're still working together to 100% the level, but there's a little competition to spice things up, which I like that a lot more than that. So unfortunately, we're over our time limit, so we will not be talking about Pokemon today. But those are some of our opinions on some very popular Nintendo franchises out and about right now. My favorite being Legend of Zelda. Is my favorite series from Nintendo, but Mario 64 is my favorite game. What would you say your favorite Nintendo game is?
I would still have to say Twilight Princess.
Yeah? Yeah, I mean, we didn't really go into much detail about why we love that game. We just kind of talked about why it was cool, but it's just an atmospheric game for me. It's beautiful, its text is great, characters are great, temples are great, puzzles are great, everything about that game is great.
Yeah.
Except for the boss fight at the end of the Temple of Time, but we're not going to talk about that.
All right. Yeah, that's it. If you guys are looking forward to Mario Wonder, it will be out
By the time this is up.
tomorrow, as of recording this, and it will be already up whenever this releases on YouTube. Discord is still down. I am yet to work on that because I have been really busy with work.
It's okay. You also are our main editor, so you're allowed to take as much time as you need.
On top of that, please check out our Twitch if you are looking at this through YouTube. Check out our YouTube if you're watching this through Twitch.
Yep. Unfortunately, we're kind of inconsistent with when we record things, but it's always either on...
It's been more so Sundays, Mondays, for streaming, and then it's gotten pretty consistent with
being around noon.
With Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for YouTube. That is a consistency thing. Not so much with the type of content that we upload. It's kind of all over the place with
we're trying to
what
get
we do.
We're trying to get onto a bi-weekly schedule at the moment where we have Played Up and Amnesia and in the podcast going out 1 week, and then the next one we'll have Mario Wonder, Mario 64, and then the podcast. It's all over the place at the moment, and we do apologize for that. We're gonna get consistent with it. Please bear with us. We've only been doing this for a little while, so this will get better as the channel progresses.
Yes. But yeah, as of YouTube, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That is confirmed. I do my absolute best to ensure that goes out on time, on day of release.
Oh, also, we do apologize. Unfortunately, we ran into a little bit of an issue with our the episode of Campfire Embers that we uploaded before this. As I was listening to it, because I always listen to all of our content just to make sure audio is good, visuals are good for every piece of content we throw out on Embers Corner on YouTube. I found out I accidentally revealed the identity of somebody on that episode, so I immediately unlisted the video, and we're going to be taking that video down and re-uploading it with a little bit of a cut there.
Which will be out same day as release. So it's just going to be a little later.
Yeah, so we do apologize for why that just was randomly taken down. That's essentially why. I did an oopsie, and we had to go and work around it, so I apologize for that.
Yep. But with that's all from us today. We will see you guys again next week for some more podcasts and possibly some more Amnesia as well.
Yes, indeed. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out all of our content on YouTube. Anything we stream ends up going onto YouTube eventually, except you're switching things up a little bit with Potion Permit.
Yes, due to lack of interest, I'm going to be doing one more stream of Potion Permit for YouTube and then completely going to Twitch.
Yeah.
That'll give Twitch a little bit more time to like kind of like, it gives us more than just one day to stream a week. So if you guys are actually enjoying Potion Permit, I will be trying to stream either Thursdays or Fridays.
Yeah, and that's just a right now thing as well. If for some reason it boosts in popularity again, then maybe we'll discuss re-uploading it or maybe restarting the series for a season 2 or stuff like that. So it's all things that will come with the future. But right now, Potion Permit will be saying bye to here in a little while.
Yeah.
On the YouTube side of things. But yeah, other than that, all of our content goes up on YouTube at some point. So if you missed the stream, go ahead and check it out over there. But without further ado, that's going to do it for today. Thank you for joining us for the stream, and thank you for viewing this on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us what games you want to see, and we'll discuss, and we'll try to go from there. But anyways, y'all, have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.